Hello everyone. Today I'm going to try to show you how to use some watercolor on your drawings. So there's a number of brushes that you can use. Let me just show you some of the tips that you can have. Let's see, you got those, yeah. So there's some with a broader tip. There's some, and you can also, of course, use them this way if you want something a little thinner. Some people like the real fine point, almost like you're drawing with it. This is also a popular one. It really becomes a matter of personal preference. These are designed for specific use. Obviously, something small like this is for real thin lines and more detailed work. This is for probably a little bit broader line, and this will carry more pigment. Brushes come in all different shapes and sizes and cost. The less expensive ones are made of synthetic materials, where the more expensive ones are made from boar bristles and other natural fibers. They are preferred by a lot of artists because they hold more paint or pigment in the brush. But it really becomes a matter of personal choice. Here is my watercolor set here. It's probably a little bit better quality than the ones you have. They can also become really expensive, but the set you have for our purposes are perfectly good. I have a little cup of water here, and then I have a bigger cup of water for cleaning and rinsing out my brush. Watercolor is pretty forgiving. You don't have to completely clean the brush. So you generally start with a lighter color, and the more water that's on there, the more pigment is going to get on there. That kind of makes sense. And every time you go over your field, or whatever it is you're adding color to, it gets a little bit darker. So we know that skies, and I'm choosing the blue here first because we probably have the most blue. And don't worry about getting some onto, say, the trees or these hills. It's not as important. A lot of times our mistakes are what people really like. If things were perfect, well then we'd think it was made by a machine. It's just not nearly as attractive. So you can spread this out. You can see I'm getting it on the tree, but I'm hoping that by going over that with the dark green that I'm going to paint that, it'll just cover it up. It won't really be much of an issue. But people like seeing brush strokes. They like the imperfections. If you do see it uneven, just keep spreading it out, thinning it out. And I'm going to continue here with the water. I've chosen the blue because this is probably the biggest color we're going to run into. And with the water, it's not as important that it's perfectly even. Probably should have used a bigger brush that holds a little bit more pigment. Constantly going back and forth, adding water. I want to get as close as I can. You don't want any gaps. If you go over, it's okay. So by drawing it first, as we have done, you really eliminate the need for shadowing. It's already kind of done for you. You rest your thing, you just also notice that with my brush stroke, I'm just going right off the paper if I need to. It gives it a much more flowy kind of look to it. Okay. I'm now going to go, and the general rule of thumb is with watercolor, you go from the lightest color to the darkest color. So I'm going to get some yellow ochre here. Let's put this down. If you would like to experiment with your watercolors and just use one color, monochromatic, just different shades of, say, green or blue, you're welcome to do that. And every time I go over this, it gets a little bit darker. It is best to let it dry first. I'm not going to be able to do that in this video because I have some I'm learning how to use iMovie, so I'm shooting this all in one shot. So this is the darker part, so I'm going to get this in where it's shaded, and then I'll just sort of finish it. And after you're done, you can always go back into this. Once it's dry, you can go into it, and if you need to touch up a form shadow, a cast shadow, add some details, you certainly can do that. I think that's going to be light enough color that we can do that. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to try some crazy colors here, and I do recommend you try different colors. So I'm going to put it kind of splotchy here, as if this is a field of maybe flowers. And I want it to look uneven. By the way, I've put this line here, and I lined it up. Remember with our vanishing point that was over there? Look at what a severe angle that is, but yet it looks natural. I could always go back over, so I got some in the water. A lot of times that will erase once it's dry. And you just have to really experiment and play around with this. We are not expecting perfection. We are expecting, I guess, a perfect effort. The more you do this, the better you get. The more you control it. Oops, a little bit too much water. And I will go back back over those hills again. See, I'm getting that excess just off the picture plane. I also have a rag here that I like to use. So there's a red field. Let's see. What would be another interesting color? I'm going to use a lot of green. How about, yes, let's try some yellow. See what happens there. So lighter colors go first. Then we put in the darker colors. Your trick is to just cover the whole space with watercolors. We get a little mixture here, that's okay. It's going to look a little orangey. I don't care. You learn control as you go on. By the way, I wanted to show you, I do have a rag here so I can dry things off and keep it clean. That's often very helpful. I'm going to try this sort of, I don't know, it looks like a lime green for this part. I do want the contrast of the trees, because these trees, I'm going to make them really a darker green so they'll stand out. Darker color will cover a lighter color. You want to cover everything, and your color choices really don't matter. Let me see if I can bring back this hill a bit. Be one I want to go back over with my drawing at some point. But here I just have too much water on my brush. So that's what your rag is for. All right. Let's cover these trees. So I'm going to start with a mid-value green. And it might be dark enough. Going with a lighter green. I also, you probably can't see it, but I'm holding my wrist down on the table so that I'm not prone to shaking or making errant remarks. I have a more steady hand. I don't know if surgeons do that or they just really work on having a super steady hand. But there's sticks. I've known artists that use a stick, like a ruler, and they'll hold it there, like this, keep their hands steady. If that works for you, and there's a little trick that maybe that will be helpful to you. much water, just go to your rag and let it, the brush will be like a sponge and help you to gather it up. All right, so now we have this serpent. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to put a serpent in our drawing, but we're going to have to deal with it. So let's see. Let's go with purple. How about a purple serpent? So you can see I'm using the thinnest brush I have. Reflect in the water. Again, anytime you feel this water is building up, if you can, just spread it around or let the brush pick it up and take it. There it is, reflecting in the water. Over it a second time, you can make these colors a little bit darker. I'm going to go back to this ground. Now we've already put in our cast shadows, but if I were to put in cast shadows, a green tree is going to cast not a green shadow, but whatever this surface color is, in this case it's kind of a yellowish color, it's going to be a darker yellow. We've already established the cast shadow, so you really don't need to do that. If you would like to experiment with that, by all means, if you really want to learn how to do this. But by drawing it first completely, you've eliminated a lot of the detailed work that you would need to do. So if we had a cast shadow on this kind of reddish pink field, it'd be a darker red, even if the object itself is green. So this is more or less dried, so you can see when I go over it again, it just makes it a darker color. So sometimes you want to leave an area and you want to make it darker, let it dry, and it will become darker. I can see I could probably go over this water a little bit more in a few places. And I see I'm kind of losing my reflections of the tree, so let's put those in. Use a darker green. with this? I did want this side of the cypress trees to be a little bit darker because of formed shadows. I wanted that sense that there is sunlight hitting it. This one done. There you go. So hopefully that helped you a little bit with the watercolor. Oh, you know, you see a splotch, you could just boom, take it out. Take it out. If we let this dry and go back over it, I can put drawing on it. I can actually add more watercolor to where I want to, and there are places where I could actually erase, like I'll probably try to erase right there. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great day.